There's a number your bank does not want you thinking about too carefully. $250,000. That is the exact ceiling the FDIC will cover if your bank disappears tomorrow morning. Everything above that number is gone. Legally, structurally, permanently gone. And if you think bank failure is something that only happened in black and white photographs during the Great Depression and never again, the FDIC closed 157 American banks in a single 2-year window between 2010 and 2011. Silicon Valley Bank evaporated in 48 hours in 2023 and dragged years of carefully accumulated depositor savings down with it before federal intervention arrived. The system holding everything you have spent your life building is not as solid as the marble lobby suggests. Not even slightly. But here's the part that your financial advisor, your bank representative, and every institution that profits from your dependency will never sit across a table and tell you. The most reliable wealth preservation mechanism in human recorded history costs $5. $5. It fits inside a standard paper bag. It survived every currency collapse, every banking panic, and every hyperinflationary spiral across every civilization that ever endured one. It was quietly, deliberately, and systematically removed from mainstream financial education at the precise moment the banking industry decided it preferred a population that was entirely and structurally dependent on its infrastructure to store, access, and grow value. And right now, this very second, it is sitting in the dirt beneath your feet waiting to be activated. I'm going to show you exactly how today. The history, the science, the suppression, and the complete step-by-step process you can begin tonight. And by the time this video ends, the way you think about wealth, soil, and genuine long-term financial resilience will be permanently, irreversibly, and forever changed. Before you can understand the solution, you need to understand the actual scale of what is working against you. The American banking industry manages over $23 trillion in deposits. The financial services sector spends more on direct federal lobbying than any other industry in the entire United States economy. Over $100 million every year flowing into the offices of the lawmakers who write the regulations governing your savings account, your pension, and your mortgage. They fund the financial literacy curriculum distributed to schools across the country. They sponsor the retirement planning seminars held in hotel conference rooms in every mid-sized city in America. They define, at a level so deep most people never notice it working, what wealth even is. A number on a screen, digits in a database, an abstraction that exists entirely inside a system they built, they operate, and they can restrict, freeze, haircut, or restructure anytime the underlying architecture requires it. They have an enormous, documented, and aggressively defended commercial interest in ensuring you never seriously consider moving meaningful wealth somewhere outside their reach, somewhere physical, somewhere productive, somewhere that generates real returns, whether the market is climbing or whether the entire system is having one of its periodic, catastrophic, and entirely predictable collapses. This is not a new insight. It is the oldest economic truth in all of recorded human history. And nowhere in the modern era was it proven more clearly or more painfully than in a country most American financial advisors never once mentioned in their planning sessions. Argentina, 2001. The peso collapsed. In weeks, not years, not months, weeks, a middle-class family's entire life savings lost 70% of its purchasing power. Banks froze withdrawals overnight without warning or recourse. The government restructured deposits without consent. Without a vote, without a public conversation. People who had done absolutely everything they were told, saved diligently, kept their money in regulated institutions, followed every piece of conventional financial advice they ever received, watched their security dissolve in real time through a screen they could not reach through and touch. But one specific population navigated that exact collapse in a categorically, measurably different way. Small agricultural landholders. Families who maintained kitchen gardens and cultivated plots as a generational habit. Not a financial strategy, not a deliberate hedge, simply a practice their grandparents insisted on, even when prosperity made it seem unnecessary and old-fashioned. Their wealth was not in the database. It was in the ground. It was producing food with a caloric and trade value that existed completely independently of whatever the peso happened to be doing on any given Tuesday morning. When the currency failed, the tomatoes did not fail. The grain did not fail. The productive capacity of well-maintained, deliberately amended, biologically alive soil did not fail. These families emerged from the worst financial crisis in Argentina's modern history with their real standard of living substantially intact. The asset that protected them cost almost nothing to establish and almost nothing to maintain. It was dirt, activated, amended, deliberately enriched dirt. And the civilization that perfected this exact method did not live in Argentina and did not discover it in 2001. They discovered it 2,000 years ago in the Amazon basin and built an entire agricultural civilization on it. What modern archaeologists eventually named Terra Preta, Dark Earth, was found scattered across the Amazon in patches of extraordinary fertility surrounded by the notoriously barren tropical soils of the region. These deposits, some dating back more than 2,000 years and still producing measurably superior yields today, contained one ingredient no natural geological process could account for: biochar. Deliberately produced, deliberately incorporated, deliberately managed carbon-rich organic material that had transformed infertile Amazonian dirt into some of the most productive agricultural land ever documented in human history. Those people did not store their generational wealth in a vault or an institution. They stored it in the ground. And the ground held it for 2,000 years without inflation, without bank runs, without a single quarterly earnings revision. Before I show you exactly how to replicate this same mechanism in your own backyard using $5 and materials you already own, I want to tell you about something I have put together for this channel. A complete resource document that goes significantly deeper than any single video can take you. It covers every major currency collapse in the last 100 years and the specific physical assets that protected the people who survived each one. It contains a practical biochar and soil investment guide organized by climate region, so the information applies directly to your specific geography and growing conditions. And it contains a plain language breakdown of the legal and policy framework around productive land use, and exactly what the financial services lobbying apparatus spent substantial resources preventing from entering standard financial literacy education. The link is in the description right now. Grab it before you close this tab, because the science I'm about to walk you through is where this stops being an interesting idea and starts being genuinely, undeniably impossible to argue with. Stay right here. The science is where everything changes. Now let us talk about what $5 actually does inside a real asset system no institution can touch. The mechanism is biochar. The word sounds modern and technical. The practice is 2,000 years old. Biochar is charred organic material, wood waste, agricultural residue, plant matter, burned at high temperature in a low oxygen environment through a process called pyrolysis. The result is a porous, structurally stable, carbon-rich matrix that interacts with living soil in a way no synthetic fertilizer, no chemical amendment, and no expensive commercial soil product can fully replicate or sustain across time. And the reason a single $5 bag mixed into a standard raised garden bed can produce measurable compounding yield improvements lasting up to a decade comes down to microbiology and carbon chemistry operating simultaneously inside a biological system completely outside the jurisdiction of any bank, broker, or regulatory body that has ever attempted to manage your financial decisions. Soil is not a passive growing medium. Genuinely healthy, biologically active soil is a living ecosystem of extraordinary and almost incomprehensible complexity. One single teaspoon of productive agricultural soil contains more individual microorganisms than there are human beings on the surface of the earth. Bacteria, fungi, protozoa, nematodes, archaea. This community is the actual engine of plant nutrition. It breaks down organic matter into bioavailable mineral compounds at rates no synthetic input can sustain without repeated purchase and escalating dosage. It fixes atmospheric nitrogen directly into the root zone through biological processes that cost nothing and require nothing from a supply chain or a manufacturer. It extends plant root access through mycorrhizal fungal networks that can span entire garden beds, sourcing water and micronutrients far beyond what any root system could reach independently. Biochar is the permanent physical structure that houses, feeds, and exponentially multiplies the carrying capacity of this biological engine across years and growing seasons without degrading, depleting, or ever requiring replacement. The porous microarchitecture of biochar, an intricate honeycomb matrix of interconnected chambers visible under any basic magnifying lens, creates ideal, protected, stable habitat for beneficial soil microorganisms at a population density that unstructured, unamended soil simply cannot support or sustain across time. Water retention in amended plots increases measurably. Nutrient holding capacity increases measurably. Mineral bioavailability to root systems improves across the entire growing season without additional purchased inputs. A peer-reviewed study published in the journal Plant and Soil, examining biochar amended plots against unamended control, plots across multiple consecutive growing seasons, documented consistent, statistically significant yield improvements of between 25 and 40%, sustained over an 8-year continuous observation period. 8 years. On a $5 input applied once. Compare that return profile honestly and directly against any savings product any institution is currently offering you. Hold both numbers in your head at the same time and ask yourself why one of them received a full semester of curriculum in your high school and the other was never once mentioned by anyone whose salary depends on managing your money. Now let us be precise and specific about why it has never been mentioned. Why this is not common knowledge in 2025. Why no financial planner has ever sat across a table and told you to spend $5 on biochar before opening a managed account. The American financial services industry generates revenue in direct proportion to the assets it manages and the products it places. Every dollar in a money market account, a certificate of deposit, a target date fund, or a brokerage portfolio generates basis point fee income for an institution inside the system. Every dollar converted into a productive physical asset outside that infrastructure generates no fee income for anyone with a lobbying budget or a government relations department. The industry response to this structural reality has been consistent, organized, and well-funded for decades. Between 2010 and 2020, financial services lobbying successfully blocked or diluted 6 separate federal legislative initiatives that would have formally included productive land use, food security infrastructure, and physical asset diversification as recognized. Components of household financial resilience planning under federally funded financial literacy programs. These were not fringe proposals. Several carried genuine bipartisan co-sponsorship from legislators with real agricultural constituencies. Every single one encountered the same organized wall of institutional opposition from an industry that profits specifically from the belief that wealth only exists inside systems it controls. Simultaneously, the global synthetic fertilizer market, the industrial product that replaced traditional soil building practice throughout,